you ever caught yourself doing something you could not explain? Not the small things, the snapped reply, the sudden tears, the burst of anger that arrived from nowhere and left you sitting there afterward wondering who exactly that was. I am talking about the larger pattern, the relationship you keep ending up in even after you swore you would never end up in it again. The same kind of person who keeps appearing in your life wearing different faces. The same dynamic at work with a different boss in a different industry in a different city, and yet somehow it is the same thing, and you are the same exhausted version of yourself by the end of it. The way you sabotage exactly the opportunities you fought hardest to win. The way you become unrecognizable to yourself at certain specific moments, possessed by something that wears your face but does not feel like you. You have a name for this in your head. You call it bad luck. You call it just how you are. You call it a difficult phase. You call it the wrong people, the wrong job, the wrong city, the wrong time. You have an entire vocabulary for these recurring patterns, and the vocabulary has one thing in common. Every word in it points outward. Outward at the world, outward at the circumstances, outward at the other people who keep doing this to you. And as long as your vocabulary points outward, you will keep living the same year of your life over and over again, calling it different things, never understanding that there has been a single force operating beneath all of it, and that force has been you. Not the you that you are aware of, the you that you have spent your entire life refusing to look at. The depth tradition has a name for this hidden force, and the name is precise. It is called the shadow, and the shadow is not a metaphor. The shadow is not a poetic flourish. The shadow is a specific, identifiable, operating part of your psyche, and right now, in this exact moment as you watch this, it is running large portions of your life, silently, automatically, from a layer beneath your conscious awareness, with consequences you have been blaming on everything except its actual source. By the end of this video, you are going to understand what your shadow is, how it formed, what it has been doing to you without your permission, and why almost everything you call your worst pattern is in fact your shadow operating exactly the way an unmade conscious shadow always operates. Whether you do anything about it after that is your business. But you are not going to be able to unsee what we are about to look at. Let's start at the beginning because the shadow has an origin, and the origin matters. When you were very young, 3, 4, 5 years old, you began to learn something that almost no one talks about, but that every child learns in every culture, in every household. You learned which parts of yourself were acceptable and which parts were not. You learned this not from explicit instructions, but from 1,000 tiny signals. Which expressions of yourself made the eyes of the people around you light up, and which expressions made those eyes go cold or angry or worried. Which sounds you made were welcomed, and which sounds were punished or ignored. Which feelings you displayed brought you closer to the people you loved, and which feelings pushed them away. The signals were not always intentional on their part. They were often unconscious themselves. But you, as a small child with an exquisitely sensitive nervous system that was wired to detect exactly these signals, absorbed every single one of them. And from those signals, you constructed something. You constructed a working model of which parts of you were allowed to exist in the open and which parts had to be pushed somewhere else. The parts that were allowed to exist in the open became what you think of as your personality. The parts that had to be pushed somewhere else. The anger that scared your parents, the neediness that annoyed them, the wildness that did not fit the household, the sensitivity that got mocked, the cleverness that made people feel competitive with you, the cruelty you discovered in yourself and immediately exiled, the desires that you sensed would not be welcomed, the parts of you that did not match the family's idea of what a good child looked like. Those parts did not disappear. Children do not have the capacity to make parts of themselves disappear. They only have the capacity to hide them. And what you did, without ever consciously deciding to, was push all of those exiled parts into a chamber of the psyche that the conscious mind cannot directly see. That chamber is the shadow. It is the storage room for everything about you that the people you needed to love you could not love. And here is what nobody told you about that chamber. It was never sealed, cannot be sealed. The parts you pushed into it did not die when you exiled them. They are not gone. They are alive, every one of them, exactly as they were on the day you exiled them. Sometimes more alive, sometimes growing in the dark, accumulating force, waiting. And because the conscious mind cannot see into the chamber, the conscious mind has no idea what is in there. So the conscious mind builds a picture of who you are that does not include the contents of the chamber. That picture is the self you think you are. And the gap between the self you think you are and the self that is actually operating you, that gap is the source of almost every recurring problem in your life. Sit with this for a moment because the implications are large. Every time you find yourself doing something that does not match your image of who you are getting a glimpse through the gap of the shadow expressing itself. Every time you say something cruel and then wonder where it came from, the shadow is what came from. Every time you sabotage something you consciously wanted, the shadow is what sabotaged it. Every time you find yourself in a relationship that has somehow turned into the exact dynamic you swore you would never repeat, the shadow has arranged it because the shadow does its work in the layer that picks your partners, and the layer that picks your partners is not the layer you make decisions in. There is a line from the depth tradition that is, in my view, one of the most important sentences ever written about the human condition. Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life and you will call it fate. Read that twice. Let it sit. Because what it is telling you with brutal clarity is that the part of you that you refuse to look at will, with absolute certainty, run your life from beneath the floorboards, and you will spend that life believing that the things happening to you are the result of circumstances, of other people, of luck, of timing, of the cosmos. You will call it fate, and it will not be fate. It will be your own unexamined shadow, executing its patterns with mechanical precision, while your conscious mind sits upstairs writing increasingly creative explanations for why your life keeps producing the same results. If something in this is starting to land, if some quiet part of you just shifted in recognition, take 1 second now and subscribe to this channel. Not because I am asking, because this work is the deeper layer that almost no one on the internet is willing to take you into, and you are clearly someone who is ready for it. Hit the bell while you are there, and then come back because we are about to look at exactly how the shadow operates in the specific situations of your actual life, and this is the part where it gets uncomfortable. The shadow does not announce itself. It does not raise its hand and say, "Hello, I am the part of you that you exiled at age 6, and I would now like to ruin your weekend." The shadow operates through a specific mechanism, and the mechanism is so common, so universal, so woven into the fabric of every human interaction, that you have been using it and being subjected to it your entire life without ever noticing. The mechanism is called projection, and once you see it, you cannot unsee it, and the entire social world starts to look very different. Here is how projection works. Something exists inside you. It is in the shadow, which means it is in you, but you cannot see it. The conscious mind, which cannot tolerate the presence of something it cannot see and cannot account for, finds a solution. It locates that thing outside of you. It finds someone else who, through some accident of their actual behavior or just through the right combination of cues, becomes a screen onto which the shadow content can be projected. And once the projection lands, the conscious mind feels enormous relief. Because now the thing that was producing an uneasy pressure inside has been located outside, where it can be observed, judged, and reacted to as if it were not yours. The conscious mind looks at the other person and says, "Look at that, look at what they are doing, look at what they are." And what the conscious mind does not know is that it is looking, with extraordinary precision, into a mirror. Think about the people in your life who irritate you the most. Not strangers, the people who are close enough that their behavior actually reaches you. The colleague whose self-importance you cannot stand. The relative whose neediness makes you want to scream. The acquaintance whose competitiveness exhausts you. The friend whose constant complaining drains you. The ex who was so emotionally manipulative that just thinking about them still tightens your chest. Take any one of those people and consider honestly what specific trait of theirs irritates you most. Then ask, with the willingness to actually hear the answer, where in yourself does that same trait live, and has it been exiled? Almost always, not always, but almost always, the trait that irritates you most powerfully in another person is the trait that you have most powerfully refused in yourself. Their self-importance triggers you because you have a self-importance you will not own. Their neediness drains you because you have a neediness you have spent your life suppressing. Their competitiveness exhausts you because you are competing with them in a part of yourself you refuse to admit is competing. The other person is real and their behavior is real, but the intensity of your reaction is not a measurement of their wrongness. It is a measurement of how much of your own shadow you are seeing in them. This is one of the most disorienting experiences a person can have when they first begin to look at it honestly, because it means that the people who provoke the strongest reactions in you are not, as you have been telling yourself, particularly bad. They are particularly informative. They are walking maps of your own shadow, and your nervous system has been responding to them so intensely precisely because they are showing you what you have spent your life refusing to see. The friend who manipulates is not your enemy. The friend who manipulates is your teacher, holding up, without their consent or knowledge, the mirror of a manipulativeness you have been suppressing inside yourself for so long that you cannot stand to see it even reflected. The realization is not pleasant. The realization is genuinely difficult to sit with. But there is no path to becoming a whole human being that does not go through the willingness to sit with it. There is a precise sentence from the depth tradition that captures this. Everything that irritates us about others can lead us to a better understanding of ourselves. Read it carefully, because it is not saying that other people's bad behavior is your fault. It is not saying that. It is saying something much more specific. It is saying that your irritation is information about you. The fact of their behavior is about them. The intensity of your reaction is about you. And the work of becoming conscious is the slow, sometimes painful project of separating those two things in every interaction, what was actually them, and what was you projecting your own exiled material onto the screen of them. Most people never do this work. Most people spend their entire lives convinced that the intensity of their reactions to others is an accurate measurement of others' wrongness. And they will go to their graves having never realized that the people they most despised were holding up, all along, the most accurate mirror of themselves that they ever had access to. Let's go further, because we have looked at the shadow expressing itself in your reactions to other people, but the shadow does not stop there. The shadow expresses itself in your choice of people. This is the part that no one wants to look at, because it is the part that reveals how thoroughly the shadow has been running your life at the level of your most consequential decisions. The people you have ended up close to, your partners, your closest friends, the colleagues you have allowed in deep, the influences you have absorbed, were not chosen by the rational mind you think makes your decisions. They were chosen in significant part by the shadow. And the shadow chooses people who serve very specific functions in the unconscious economy of your psyche, and the functions are almost never the ones your conscious mind would endorse. The shadow chooses, often, people who carry the exiled traits you cannot own in yourself. This is why you keep ending up with a particular kind of partner. Not because they are the only kind of partner available, because they are the kind of partner who carries, on the outside, the parts of yourself you have refused to carry on the inside. The shadow needs those parts to live somewhere. They cannot live in you because you have exiled them. So the shadow finds people in whom they can live, and brings you close to those people again and again, because being close to them is the only way you have available to be close to the exiled parts of yourself. The relationship feels electric, urgent, fated, because something in you that you cannot consciously feel is reaching, through the other person, for a piece of yourself you cannot reach directly. And then the relationship becomes a nightmare, because you cannot live for very long with someone who is openly expressing the thing you have spent your whole life suppressing. The same trait that drew you to them with magnetic force eventually becomes the trait you cannot stand. And then you leave, you swear it off, you tell yourself you will never again. And then 6 months or 6 years later, you find yourself with another version of the same person, and the cycle begins again because the shadow is still doing its work, and the shadow does not learn from your conscious resolutions. The shadow only learns from being made conscious. The shadow also chooses, sometimes, people who will reliably reactivate your earliest wounds. This is the harder one to hear, but it is so universally true that anyone who has done serious inner work has eventually had to face it. The patterns that hurt you most in childhood, the kinds of unavailability, the kinds of criticism, the kinds of inconsistency, the kinds of conditional love, these patterns get burned into the deepest part of your nervous system in a way that becomes, for the rest of your life, the texture that registers as familiar. Familiarity, for a nervous system, is closer to home than safety or health. Your nervous system will return with strange determination to whatever pattern feels like home, even when that pattern is the source of your suffering. So the shadow steers you toward people who replicate the original wound, not because the shadow wants you to suffer, but because the shadow does not yet have the data that the wound was awound. To the shadow, the wound was simply the shape of love, the shape of connection, the shape of intimacy. And so the shadow keeps trying to recreate that shape again and again, hoping perhaps that this time it will resolve differently, or simply because that shape is the only shape it knows how to recognize as love. You can see, when you look at it this way, how the shadow does not need to be malicious to wreak havoc in your life. The shadow is, in some ways, profoundly innocent. It is operating with the data it has in the way it has learned to operate, with the goals it was given by a small child who did not know they were making decisions that would last 50 years. And the small child, who did the original exiling, did the best they could in an environment that demanded what it demanded. The shadow is not your enemy. The shadow is what you had to become in the moment to survive. And the shadow has continued to do that survival job long after the conditions that required it have passed, and is now, with the best intentions in the world, running patterns that no longer serve the adult you have become. The work is not to defeat the shadow. The work is to update its data, to let it know gently and clearly that the small child it was protecting is no longer in danger, and that the patterns that were necessary then are no longer necessary now, and that there is finally an adult here who can carry what the child could not carry, and who can let the exiled parts come home. That work, the work of letting the exiled parts come home, has a name in the depth tradition, and the name is integration. It is one of the most important things a human being can do, and it is also one of the rarest because it requires you to do something that almost everything in your conditioning is going to resist. It requires you to look at the parts of yourself you have spent your life refusing to look at, and not just look at them, but actually receive them, claim them, bring them back into the citizenship of your conscious self. Not enact them, not unleash them on the world. Receive them. Acknowledge that they are part of you. Stop pretending they are not there. Stop projecting them onto other people. Stop being shocked when they erupt, because once you have acknowledged them, they no longer need to erupt to get your attention. The thing that nobody tells you about integration is that it is, almost paradoxically, the only path to actually living in alignment with the values you consciously hold. The person who has exiled their cruelty is not, by virtue of the exile, a kind person. The person who has exiled their cruelty is a person whose cruelty operates from beneath the floorboards, expressing itself through passive aggression, through sabotage of others' wins, through carefully phrased remarks that wound while maintaining plausible deniability. All the while, the conscious self continues to believe in its own kindness. The person who has actually integrated their cruelty, who has acknowledged that the capacity for cruelty exists in them, who can feel the impulse without being secretly controlled by it, is far more reliably kind than the person who has exiled it. Because they can see when it rises in them, they can name it, they can choose not to enact it, and they do not have to displace it onto others. The integrated person owns the whole human being they actually are. The unintegrated person is at war with half of themselves, and the half they are at war with is winning, because what you refuse to look at is always more powerful than what you can see. This applies across every dimension of the shadow. The exiled anger does not make you peaceful. It makes you a person whose anger leaks out sideways. The exiled neediness does not make you self-sufficient. It makes you a person whose neediness shows up as control, as resentment, as manipulation disguised as care. The exiled vulnerability does not make you strong. It makes you a person whose vulnerability bleeds through your armor in ways you cannot manage. The exiled desire does not make you disciplined. It makes you a person whose desire ambushes you at exactly the moments you most needed to be in control of yourself. Every exile is a future ambush. The shadow does not give up. The shadow waits. And the only way to stop being ambushed by your shadow is to stop forcing it to operate in the dark. You may be sitting with all of this and wondering, then, what exactly the work of integration looks like in practice. Because the language of the depth tradition can feel abstract, and the temptation when you encounter abstract psychological language is to think, yes, that is interesting, that is profound, I should look into that someday, and then to close the video and never look into it. So let me get concrete for a few minutes about what this work actually looks like when you sit down to do it. The first practice is the practice of noticing. Not changing yet, just noticing. The next time you have a strong negative reaction to another person, instead of either acting on it or suppressing it, hold it in your awareness long enough to ask the question we have been circling. What in this person am I refusing in myself? Not what am I refusing because I should refuse it, but what am I refusing because I was taught it was unacceptable? Hold the question without forcing an answer. Often the answer will not come immediately. It will arrive hours later, in the middle of doing something else, with the quiet force of something that has been waiting to be allowed to surface. When it arrives, do not push it away. Just acknowledge it. There it is. That is in me. I have been pretending it is not. The second practice is the practice of welcoming. When the exiled part comes home, when you finally let yourself acknowledge the anger, the neediness, the cruelty, the ambition, the desire, whatever you have been exiling, you have to receive it without acting it out. This is the part where almost everyone gets confused. Integration is not enactment. Integration is not, oh, I have integrated my cruelty, now I can be cruel. Integration is the opposite. Integration is acknowledging that the capacity is in you, feeling the impulse fully when it arises, and then making conscious decisions about what you will and will not do with it. The integrated person feels the urge to wound someone, recognizes the urge, owns the urge as their own, and then chooses with full awareness not to enact it. The unintegrated person does not feel the urge, refuses to feel the urge, and then finds themselves wounding the person through a mechanism they cannot account for. Integration is what makes you actually in charge of your own behavior. Exile is what makes the behavior in charge of you. The third practice is the practice of staying with the discomfort, because integrating the shadow is not a pleasant experience. The reason you exiled these parts in the first place is that they came with discomfort, the discomfort of being unacceptable, the discomfort of being unloved, the discomfort of being yourself in a way that did not work in your original environment. Bringing them back into consciousness reactivates that discomfort. You will feel ashamed of parts of yourself you had spent decades pretending were not there. You will grieve the years you spent at war with parts of yourself that needed welcoming instead. You will feel sometimes like you are becoming worse rather than better, because behaviors that used to feel automatic and innocent will now feel charged and visible. This is not regression. This is the work. The discomfort is not a sign that you should stop. The discomfort is a sign that the integration is actually happening, because integration without discomfort would just be more exile dressed up in new language. And here is what waits on the other side of the discomfort if you stay with it. A specific quality of presence that you cannot fake and that no shortcut can produce. A solidness that comes from no longer being at war with yourself. A capacity to be in the world without constantly leaking energy into projections, without constantly being ambushed by patterns you cannot name. A freedom in your relationships that comes from the fact that you are no longer asking other people to carry the exiled pieces of yourself for you. An accuracy in your own behavior that comes from being able to see, in real time, what you are actually doing and why. None of these qualities can be acquired by trying to acquire them. They can only be acquired as the byproduct of the integration work. They are not the destination, but they are what shows up reliably in the lives of the people who do the work. Let me end with the warning I would want someone to give me if I were just starting this. The shadow does not finish. There is no day on which the work is done. The integration of one layer of shadow material reveals the existence of a deeper layer that you could not see before, because the first layer was hiding it. The depth keeps opening. The work keeps going. And anyone who tells you that the work has an endpoint is either selling you something or has not gone deep enough to know what they are talking about. This is a lifelong practice. And the people who pretend it is a single transformation, after which they have arrived, are usually the people whose shadow has simply found a new disguise, the disguise of the spiritually advanced person, and is now operating from beneath that disguise with even more impunity than before, because no one, including themselves, can see it through the new mask. So if you take only one thing from this, take this. The work is not to defeat your shadow. The work is to make it your lifelong companion, to get to know it, to stop being surprised by it, to learn its specific shapes, its particular triggers, its favorite disguises, its preferred projections, and to develop slowly over years a working relationship with the parts of yourself you have spent your entire life refusing to meet. The relationship is not always pleasant. It is, however, the single most important relationship you will ever have, because it is the relationship with the parts of yourself that have been running your life from the dark, and the only way to stop being run by them is to bring them into the light, where they can finally be seen, finally be welcomed home, and finally, for the first time in your life, be free. If this reached something in you, if you felt the truth of it land somewhere uncomfortable, do something for me right now. Write in the comments these 3 words. I see it. Just that. Because putting it into language is the first act of making the unconscious conscious, and what becomes conscious can finally be lived. Let's see how many of us are ready to stop calling it fate. And if this video moved you, give it a like, not for me, but as a small signal to yourself that you are choosing the deeper path. The next video continues exactly where this one ends, into the deeper layer of the work, what happens after you have first met your shadow and now have to live with it. It is more important than you know. I will see you there.